Trigger warning. This content may contain offensive materials. It may also contain flashing lights, loud noises, and other triggers. If you are easily bothered by true crime, the paranormal, or dark content in general, please turn back now.
Just follow me! Follow me! You'll be fine!
People talk about how you'll hear a small child scream in the distance as if she's being tortured. Supposedly, it's a 7-year-old girl named Stephanie.
Kane is accused of killing
Frank Smith,
whose body was found along a trail near Peru in Miami County. Investigators say Smith suffered massive head trauma.
Oh, I heard that! Oh my gosh, what was that? Ah!
You guys okay?
Stephanie and the legend of 8 bodies being found on the property are just a myth.
Francis Slocum State Forest, also known as Okie, Pinokie, is known very well throughout northern Indiana for being extremely haunted. Dozens of ghost stories are told by locals and frequent visitors of Okie, Pinokie. The stories range from tellings of a little girl who was abused and killed in the woods. Other stories talk about a British soldier putting an end to a killing spree. When people tell new visitors these stories, they present them as facts, which gets into the reason I'm making this video. I'm here to present some of the myths and the actual facts. I want to say that I've personally been to Okie, Pinokie, and I do believe it's haunted, but I don't believe it's haunted by Joey, Peoria, or Stephanie. Let's start by talking about who the forest is named after, that being a woman born to the name of Frances Slocum. Frances Slocum, later known as McConaughey, or Little Bear in English, was born to a Quaker family on March 4th, 1773, in Warwick, Rhode Island. Slocum's family moved to Luzerne County, Pennsylvania in 1777 when she was only 4 years old. 1 year later, she was kidnapped by 3 warriors of the Delaware tribe. She was taken from the Slocum family farm and raised by the Delaware natives in what is now Ohio and Indiana. She later married a man named Shepakana, or Deaf Man, when translated. They raised a family of 2 sons who died young and 2 daughters who went on to live full lives. Frances Slocum and her warrior chief husband settled in Deaf Man's village. Frances Slocum's husband sadly passed away in 1833, leaving Frances as a widow in the village. Later, Slocum revealed to traveler George Ewing that she was a white woman. Ewing eventually wrote a letter to a Pennsylvania newspaper, which led to Slocum's family finding her. Her brothers pleaded with her to come home, but she refused. Frances spent her last days in her husband's beloved village and met her end at the age of 80. She is now buried in the Frances Slocum Cemetery, which is located very close to her old home. Her tombstone reads, "A child of English descent, born in Warwick, Rhode Island, March 1773, was carried into captivity from her father's house at Wilkes Barn, Pennsylvania. That was November 2nd, 1778. By Delaware Indians soon after the Wyoming Massacre. Her brothers gave persistent search but did not find her till September 21st, 1837. I believe that this inscription is the basis of one of Okie Pinokie's biggest legends. That is the legend of Stephanie. Stephanie! Are you guys okay?
Yeah,
Did you just talk into the mic?
Do what?
Most people figure out fairly quickly that Stephanie never existed. The legend goes that a 7-year-old named Stephanie was kidnapped, tortured, and killed by 3 men near the root cellar in the Okie woods. It is said you can still see rope burns in the tree she was killed at. It is also said that if you find the tree, Stephanie will follow you until you leave the woods. Another part of Stephanie's story is if you scream, call Stephanie's name, or whistle while you're in the woods, Stephanie will scream or whistle back.
Hey, you left! Bad boy! This direction! This direction! Remember we came by the fresh crap? Oh, I heard that. Oh my gosh, what was that? Ah! What was that? We just heard screaming.
The next legend of Okie Pinokie is the legend of Joey Peoria. It's said that Joey lived around the woods of Okie Pinokie his whole life, and sometime in the 70s to 80s, he decided to go camping with 3 of his friends. Allegedly, one of his friends was having an affair with Joey's wife. Joey is said to have killed his 3 friends by campfire. It's said that he then went on to kill 5 more people, and that all of the bodies were discovered by the Mississinawa staff. Joey was never caught, but it's said that his killing spree was stopped by the spirit of a British soldier who was killed in 1812. It's said that Joey, his victims, and the soldier still roam the forest today. The legend also states that sometimes early into dusk you can smell the smoke of a campfire and occasionally hear the voices of men chattering. But no matter how close you get to the voices, you'll never find anyone. Unfortunately, the story is probably just as full of shit as it sounds. If you dig for information at all, you might find a couple of pictures that are said to be of Joey Peoria. But if Joey does exist, those 2 pictures that can only be found on the app Geocache are the only records of his existence. There are no birth records, death records, missing person reports, and most importantly, no bodies that have ever been found at Okie Pinokie before 2018. This has been confirmed by the Mississinawa Reservoir staff. The only thing with any relation to Okie Pinokie with the name Peoria on it is the small town by that name, which is very close by. The town was founded by a man named Isaac Litzenberg, so the town was not given a family name or named after its founder. The town was named after the Peoria Native tribe of Oklahoma. In more recent history, there was a murder at Okie Pinokie. A young man named Drake Smith was killed by 2 men who had beat him to death with a metal pipe. The day of the murder, Drake Smith, Ethan Kane, Joshua Key, and a woman named Brittany Morris had all attended the same party. They were all believed to be at this party until roughly 2 a.m. Drake and Brittany were seen leaving a Walmart in a nearby town, followed by Ethan and Joshua. They all went to Okie Pinokie together, but Drake never made it out. Earlier that day, Brittany Morris had devised a plan to rob Drake because she claimed that he always had drugs on him. So when the group of 4 arrived at Okie Pinokie, they went into the woods where Ethan Kane attempted to choke Drake from behind. Then Joshua Kane struck Drake in the face with a metal pipe. According to witnesses, Drake begged for his life before he was killed. Ethan, Josh, and Brittany robbed Drake of his personal items and fled. Ethan and Josh were arrested in California. Ethan Kane went on to get the maximum sentence for murder in Indiana, which is 55 years, and Joshua Kane was sentenced to 30 years for robbery. The last suspect, Brittany Morris, was sentenced to 48 years for inducing or aiding in a murder, among other charges. As I said in the beginning, I do believe that Okie Pinokie is haunted. There's a lot of crazy evidence out there. There's evidence that has been recorded, photographed, and talked about. I also said that I don't believe it is haunted by any of the legends we talked about before. The next legend, however, has evidence to back it up. Evidence that I've personally captured. Almost anywhere you can find anything out about Okie Pinokie, you can find stories of rare birds or a strange animal calling in the distance. I've personally captured these calls on camera.
I need to get some of those.
There it is.
This is a coyote. Fuck you talking about,
That ain't
bitch?
no coyote.
That a
That's
coyote.
not a coyote house.
No. Tickle me, Elmo. Shut the fuck up.
I'm a logical man, so I originally thought these were some kind of owl or some messed up coyote. And before you ask, no, we don't have any big cats, bears, or big predators in general. I've also tried to look for any rare birds that the stories could be talking about, and the only rare bird that we have in Indiana is the bald eagle. And as you'll see in a minute, it sounds nothing like the things I've caught. Some people also say these calls come from something called the Watchman. They say he patrols the area for some reason. Now, before I get into my final theory on what I think is haunting the woods of Okie Pinokie, I have one more legend. Most people call the turnaround at the end of this road to Okie Pinokie the Devil's Circle. They say it was once a Native American burial ground. That isn't true, however. There is an old cemetery located in the woods somewhere. Even if there isn't a burial ground inside of the woods, the residents of Deaf Man Village spent their whole lives in the Okie Pinokie woods or near them. They were also buried in Francis Slocum Cemetery. It would be very easy to say that the residents of Deaf Man Village haunt the woods of Francis Slocum State Forest, and I'm sure any believer would easily accept that answer. But if you dig a little deeper into Miami native history, you may learn of something called a Manitou. The Miami people centered their religion around the spirit of the Manitou. They believed that they could gain power from these beings. The Manitou were believed to be able to shapeshift into humans, animals, and even plants or nuts. The Miami natives often tried to contact certain Manitou to be their spirit guides, among other reasons. That being said, and knowing what you know now about the Miami people, Francis Slocum, and the only actual murder that we know of in the Okie Pinokie woods, could a Manitou be watching over what was Miami territory? Could they be the source of the howls? Could Drake Smith still roam Okie Pinokie? Or could it be something more sinister? Now, before I end this video, I have one more video to show you. This is a video that claims to be of a skinwalker. In this video, you'll hear sounds that sound very much alike to what I've captured at Okie Pinokie. It is not clear where this video was taken, but here's my Okie Pinokie video for comparison.
I need to get some of those. I need to get some of those.
There it is.
Could this be the same thing that's haunting Okie Pinokie? Perhaps we may never know, but as always, I hope you liked the video, and have a good evening.